local community member, queer artist who recently passed away. Okay, so y'all make some noise for Sweet Gwendolyn.
I don't know if you've heard, but 48 hours ago it was announced that Gary Floyd, the nationally famous Austin queer punk icon, passed on from congestive heart failure at the age of 71, survived by his husband Tom. Despite this being about a death, this is going to be a happy piece because it is a celebration of his life and the happiness that he brought. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Gary, and then I'm going to tell you what he meant to me. And first and foremost, in my mind at least, he was the singer for the Dicks, the band I will primarily be talking about, but it is also noteworthy that he was in Sister Double Happiness, the Buddha Brothers, Black Kali Ma, and the Gary Floyd band. Getting back to the Dicks, they were formed here in Austin, Texas in 1980, and Gary quickly earned a reputation for being extremely defiant and confrontationally vocal about being anti-racist, anti-sexist, anti-homophobe, anti-KKK, anti-Nazi, and based on those values, also anti-cop. Gary often performed in drag, as did his close friends in the Austin queer punk scene, including Randy Biscuit Turner from the Big Boys and Dave Dichter from MDC. Jello Biafra once described Gary as a 300-pound communist drag queen who could sing like Janis Joplin. Gary described himself to Maximum Rock and Roll as, "I was loud and happy to be letting people know, hey, I'm a big old fat queer, what the hell are you?" I did give a fuck, and I spoke out about it, but not in an oppressed or sad way, more in a party, happy, and very defiant way. One of Gary's most iconic performances, which I am paying tribute to right now, was when he dressed in a nurse's uniform and pulled organ meat out of his underwear throughout the show. Gary was a queer radical off the stage as well as on, and if you were not aware, all the way until the 1970s, queer and trans people could be involuntarily committed to psychiatric hospitals and were subjected to horrific treatments. During that time, Gary worked as a janitor in Austin State Hospital, just a mile up the street, smuggled messages to and from queer people who were locked up in the hospital to their friends and lovers to help keep them sane until they could convince their doctors that they had been, quote, cured of their queerness in order to secure their release. No description of Gary would be complete without mentioning that he was a dedicated Buddhist and communist, and despite frequently frightening people with his on-stage ferocity, he was a complete sweetie pie off of the stage. So, on a personal note, Gary has always been an important figure in my life. I first heard about him from Kurt Cobain, who was always using his celebrity to lift people up, and in bands as well that he thought deserved it more than he did. Once I moved to Austin in 2004, I saw every show the Dicks played in Austin until they retired in 2016. It was there that I first introduced myself to Gary as a fellow queer punk and got a sticker of their iconic Eternal Flame heart on a blue background, which was one of my favorite art pieces in my living room for years. On the night of the final Dicks show in 2016, I gave Gary flowers from Dave Dichter with his message, "Every leading lady deserves flowers on her closing night from one queen to another," which also means that by way of Dave Dichter, I literally got to give Gary his flowers while he was still alive. In more recent years, I've bought art from him at 2 art shows he had at the Grey Duck Gallery, which I have had on the walls of my bedroom ever since, admiring them and thinking about how much I love him on literally a daily basis. And since the last art opening, and at the last art opening, he requested that I sit next to him while he was holding court so that he could have a queer, disabled punk family by his side as his well-wishers formed a line to come up and greet him. Beyond any one experience, as a politically defiant punk, queer, and trans kid and budding drag queen from Alabama, Gary allowed me to see a future for myself and a way of being in a world that was telling me that I shouldn't. I'd like to end with saying, from the bottom of my pussy, you will always be in my heart, Gary.